Sterling thought he was protecting his billion-dollar legacy when he kicked his useless wife and 3 daughters out. He called them defective assets because they weren't the sons he demanded. But as he watched his pregnant wife stumble into the dark, he had no idea he wasn't just losing a wife. He was throwing away the only male heir he would ever have. Even more chilling, the woman standing behind him, his wife's own step-sister, was smiling. She knew a secret about that pregnancy, a secret so dark it would haunt Sterling for the rest of his life. What happened next to Jada and her 3 girls in that frozen night? How did the worthless wife become the most powerful woman in the city? And what was the horrifying truth the step-sister was hiding? Watch until the very end, because I promise you, you will not be able to stop your tears before we dive into this heart-shattering journey. If you believe that every child is a blessing regardless of their gender, please join our family channel right now. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a story that touches the soul. Now, let's see the price Sterling paid for his cruelty. The morning light filtered through the curtains of the Buckhead mansion, casting golden streaks across Jada's face as she stood in the kitchen, her hand resting on her swollen belly, 6 months pregnant. Her daughter's laughter echoed from the living room, where Tiana helped Maya braid Lyric's hair into tiny puffs. This was her life. Simple, full, beautiful. But something had shifted in Sterling lately. The way he looked at her had changed, like she was a broken appliance he'd grown tired of fixing. Jada brushed the thought away and poured orange juice into 3 cups. She heard the front door open and close. Sterling's Kalan reached her before his voice did. "We need to talk." She turned. His face was stone. Behind him stood Skylar, her step-sister, wearing a tight red dress that screamed for attention. Skylar's blonde hair was pulled back in a sleek ponytail, her lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Morning," Jada said softly, searching Sterling's eyes. "I was just about to make breakfast. You hungry?" Sterling didn't answer. He dropped a manila folder onto the marble counter. The sound echoed like a gunshot. "Open it." Jada's hands trembled as she pulled out the papers inside. Medical documents. Prenatal screening results. Her eyes scanned the words until they landed on one line. Fetal sex determination female. Her breath caught. "This isn't right. I haven't had this test yet." "You don't need to lie anymore," Sterling said coldly. "I had it done privately." Another girl, Jada. Another worthless girl. The words hit her like a fist to the chest. Worthless. Skylar leaned against the door frame, examining her nails. "Some women just aren't built to carry sons." "Sis, it's biology. Not your fault you're limited." Jada's jaw tightened. "Sky, what are you doing?" Helping Sterling see the truth. Skylar's voice was sweet poison. "He deserves a legacy. A son. Something you clearly can't give him." Sterling crossed his arms. "I've spent 5 years waiting. 5 years of daughters. I need an heir, Jada. Not another girl who'll cost me a fortune in weddings someday." Jada felt her world tilting. "Sterling, we talked about this. You said you loved our girls. You said..." "I said a lot of things." His voice was ice. "But I'm done pretending." Tiana appeared in the doorway, her 9-year-old face confused. "Daddy, why are you yelling at Mama?" Sterling's expression didn't soften. "Go to your room, Tiana." "Sterling, don't talk to her like that." Jada snapped, stepping forward. He raised a hand. You don't get to tell me how to speak in my own house. Skylar moved closer to Sterling, her fingers grazing his arm. The gesture was intimate, familiar. Jada's stomach turned. How long? Jada whispered, her eyes fixed on Skylar's hand. Skylar smiled. Does it matter? The betrayal burned hotter than any anger Jada had ever felt. Her step-sister, the girl her mother had rescued from a park bench, hungry and abandoned. The girl they'd fed, clothed, loved like blood. You're sleeping with my husband, ex-husband. Actually, Skylar pulled a folded document from her purse. Sterling filed this morning. Congratulations, you're free. Jada's knees nearly buckled. She grabbed the counter for support. You can't be serious. Sterling's jaw was set. I've already spoken to my lawyers. You'll be out by tonight. Tonight. Jada's voice cracked. Sterling, I'm 6 months pregnant. Our daughters. We'll be fine. You'll figure it out. Women like you always do. Women like you. The words dripped with contempt. Skylar circled the kitchen island, her heels clicking against the tile. She stopped in front of Jada, so close their faces were inches apart. You know what your problem is. You never appreciated what you had. Sterling gave you everything. This house, those girls. And you gave him nothing he actually wanted. Jada's hand moved on instinct. The slap echoed through the kitchen. Skylar stumbled back, her hand flying to her cheek. For a moment, shock replaced her smug expression. Then Sterling grabbed Jada's wrist, his grip bruising. Don't you ever touch her again. Let go of me. Jada hissed. He shoved her backward. She caught herself against the counter, breathing hard. Maya and Lyric appeared now, their small faces terrified. Mama. Jada's heart shattered. She forced herself to smile. It's okay, babies. Go upstairs and pack your favorite toys. We're going on a trip. A trip where? Tiana asked, her voice small. Jada couldn't answer. She didn't have one. Sterling pulled out his phone. I'm calling security. You have 2 hours to get your things and leave. Take only what's yours. Everything else stays. Everything here is ours, Jada said, her voice shaking. We built this life together. You built nothing. Sterling's eyes were dead. I built this, with my money, my name. You were just the accessory. Skylar draped herself across Sterling's arm, her cheek still red from Jada's slap. Don't be cruel, babe. Jada did her best. It's not her fault she comes from limited stock. Jada's mother had been a brilliant herbalist, a woman who'd healed half of Atlanta with remedies passed down through generations. Limited stock. The insult cut deeper than any other. My mother saved your life, Jada said quietly. You were 3 years old, abandoned in Piedmont Park. She found you eating scraps from a trash can. She brought you home, fed you, raised you as her own. And this is how you repay her memory. Skylar's smile never wavered. Your mother was a saint. Too bad sainthood doesn't pay bills. I prefer Sterling's portfolio. Jada turned to Sterling. You're really going to let her talk about my mother like that? He shrugged. She's not wrong. Your mother was. Nice. But nice doesn't build empires. Something inside Jada broke then. Not her spirit. That would take more than this. But the illusion she'd been holding onto shattered completely. This man wasn't the person she'd married. Or maybe he'd always been this person, and she'd been too blinded by love to see it. She straightened her spine. Fine. We'll leave. But know this, Sterling. You're making the biggest mistake of your life. He laughed. The mistake was marrying you in the first place. Skylar giggled, the sound grating against Jada's nerves. Jada gathered her daughters, her hands shaking as she led them upstairs. Tiana kept looking back at Sterling, tears streaming down her face. "Why doesn't Daddy love us anymore?" she whispered. Jada knelt down, pulling all three girls into her arms. "He's confused right now, baby. But I love you. I love all of you more than anything in this world. And we're going to be okay." "Where are we going?" Maya asked. Jada didn't know. She had no family left. No close friends. Sterling hadn't isolated her from over the years. Her bank accounts were in his name. Her car was registered to him. She had nothing but the clothes on her back and 3 terrified daughters. "Somewhere safe," she promised, praying it was true. They packed quickly. Jada grabbed only essentials, clothes, photos, her mother's journal of herbal remedies. As she stuffed items into suitcases, she noticed something. Her mother's necklace. The gold heirloom with the Ethiopian cross. It always sat in her jewelry box. It was gone. Jada's blood ran cold. She tore through drawers, searching frantically. Nothing. Downstairs, she could hear Skylar's laughter. Jada descended the stairs slowly, her daughters trailing behind. Skylar stood in the foyer, and there, hanging around her pale neck, was the necklace, looking for something. Skylar asked innocently, "Take it off." "This old thing." "Sterling gave it to me. Said it looked better on me anyway." She stroked the gold cross. "I think he's right. Gold really pops against my skin tone. Don't you think?" Jada lunged forward, but Sterling stepped between them. "Enough. Security's waiting outside, go." The storm had rolled in during the confrontation. Through the windows, Jada could see ice forming on the driveway, the sky dark and angry. "It's freezing out there," Jada said. "At least let us take the car. The car is mine. Everything here is mine. Now get out before I have you arrested for trespassing." Lyric started crying, her tiny body shaking. "I don't want to go outside, it's cold." Sterling didn't even look at her. Jada scooped Lyric up, balancing her on one hip while holding Maya's hand. Tiana clutched their single suitcase, her face streaked with tears. The front door opened. The cold hit them like a wall. "Mama, I don't have my shoes," Lyric sobbed. "My feet hurt." Jada looked back at Sterling, desperate. "Please, just let me grab her shoes." He slammed the door in her face. The lock clicked. Through the frosted glass, Jada could see Skylar draping herself across Sterling's chest, her lips moving against his ear, his arms wrapped around her waist. The necklace glinted under the chandelier light. Jada stood on the porch, ice stinging her face, her pregnant belly aching, her barefoot 3-year-old crying in her arms. And in that moment, something shifted inside her. Not despair, not defeat, rage, pure, crystallized rage. She would survive this. She would rise from it. And one day soon, Sterling and Skylar would regret every single second of this night. "Come on, babies," she whispered, her voice steady despite the storm. "We're going to find somewhere warm." They walked into the freezing Atlanta night. Jada's arms wrapped around her daughters, her jaw set with determination. Behind them, the mansion's lights glowed warm and golden. Ahead of them was only darkness. But Jada had learned long ago that darkness was just another kind of beginning. The ice turned the streets into glass. Jada's bare feet screamed with every step, but she kept moving. Lyric whimpered against her shoulder. Maya's hand was frozen in hers, and Tiana struggled with the suitcase that kept catching on the icy sidewalk. "Mama, where are we going?" Tiana asked again, her voice barely audible over the howling wind. "Somewhere safe, baby. Just keep walking." But Jada had no answer, no plan. The cold was seeping into her bones, and her daughter's pajamas were already soaked through. She'd tried calling old friends, but Sterling had systematically cut her off from everyone over the years. Her phone showed 12% battery. They passed closed businesses, empty parking lots. The storm had driven everyone inside. Smart people were home with their families. Jada's family was dying in the cold. A car slowed beside them. Jada's heart leaped. Maybe someone was stopping to help. But as the window rolled down, she saw the driver's eyes rake over them with disgust before speeding away. "They think we're homeless," Tiana whispered, tears freezing on her cheeks. "We are homeless," Maya said quietly. Jada stopped walking. Her daughters looked up at her with terrified eyes, waiting for her to fix this, to make it better the way mothers always did. But she had nothing. No money, no shelter, no hope. The baby kicked inside her belly, as if reminding her that giving up wasn't an option. "There's a church," Jada said suddenly, spotting a steeple 3 blocks ahead. "Churches always have shelters. We'll go there." They trudged forward, Lyric now unconscious against Jada's shoulder, her breathing shallow. Panic clawed at Jada's throat. Her baby was too cold, too still. The church doors were locked. Jada pounded on the wood, screaming for help, but no one came. A sign posted on the door read, "Storm shelter full. Try county services." County services was 8 miles away. Jada sank onto the church steps, pulling her daughters close. Tiana's lips were turning blue. Maya couldn't stop shivering. Lyric didn't move at all. Jada whispered, her voice breaking, "Please. I know I haven't been perfect. I know I've made mistakes. But please don't punish my babies for my failures. Please send someone. Anyone." The wind answered with a blast of ice. Then, through the storm, headlights appeared. An old pickup truck pulled up to the curb. The door opened, and a man stepped out, tall, broad-shouldered, with grey threading through his clothes, cropped hair. He wore a heavy coat and moved with purpose through the ice. Jada Robinson. His voice was deep familiar somehow. Jada squinted through the freezing rain. "Do I know you?" "Silas Montgomery. I worked for your husband, head of security until 6 months ago." Recognition hit her. Silas. Sterling had fired him suddenly, claimed he'd been stealing. But Jada had never believed it. Silas had been the only person in Sterling's orbit who'd ever treated her with genuine respect. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "Saw the whole thing on the security cameras before Sterling had them wiped. Took me a while to find you." He looked at her daughters, his expression hardening. "These babies are freezing. My truck's warm. Let's get them inside." Jada wanted to refuse. Pride demanded it. But Lyric's skin was ice cold, and Maya's shivering had turned violent. "Okay," she whispered. Silas scooped up Lyric with surprising gentleness, wrapping her in his coat. Jada helped Maya and Tiana into the truck's back seat, while Silas cranked the heat to maximum. Within minutes, color began returning to her daughters' faces. Lyric's eyes fluttered open. "Who's that man?" she asked groggily. "A friend," Jada said, though she wasn't sure that was true. Silas drove through the storm without speaking, his jaw tight. They traveled to the outskirts of Atlanta, where the mansions gave way to modest homes. then to rundown apartments, then to industrial warehouses. Finally, he pulled up to a building that looked abandoned. Windows boarded, graffiti covering the walls. Jada's guard went up. "Where are we?" "Somewhere Sterling would never think to look." Silas killed the engine. "It's not pretty, but it's warm and dry. You'll be safe here." He led them inside, down a narrow staircase to a basement that had been transformed into a living space. It was sparse. A few mattresses, a hot plate, some canned food stacked in a corner. But there were blankets, heat, a bathroom. Jada got her daughters settled under piles of blankets, their teeth still chattering, but their color improving. Once they were asleep, she turned to Silas. "Why are you helping us?" He pulled out a chair, gesturing for her to sit. "Because Sterling destroyed my life, and I know he's destroying yours." "What happened?" Silas's eyes darkened. "I found out Sterling was embezzling funds from your mother's estate. She left you everything in her will. The house in Decatur, her savings, the intellectual property rights to all her herbal remedies. Worth about $3 million, maybe more. Sterling transferred it all into offshore accounts 2 months after her funeral." The room spun. "That's not possible." The lawyer said there was nothing. Just debts. Sterling's lawyer. Who Sterling paid. Silas pulled out a folder thick with documents. "I found these while doing a routine security audit. When I confronted Sterling, he fired me. Had me arrested for theft, though the charges didn't stick. Ruined my reputation anyway." Jada's hands shook as she leafed through the papers. Bank statements. Transfer records. Her mother's signature forged on document after document. "He stole from a dead woman." She whispered. "He stole from you, and he's been using that money to fund his company's expansion. The Atlanta office, the New York merger. All built on your inheritance." Rage surged through Jada again, hotter than before. "I'm going to the police." "With what evidence?" "These are copies. Sterling has the originals locked in a safe only he and Skylar can access. And even if you did go to the police, Sterling has half the force on his payroll. You'd be laughed out of the station. So what am I supposed to do?" Silas leaned forward. "You get smart. You get strong. And you take back what's yours with interest." Something in his voice made Jada study him more closely. "You're not just helping me out of kindness, are you? I want Sterling to pay for what he did to me. To you. To every person he's crushed on his way up." Silas's smile was sharp. "But I can't do it alone. I need someone with a legitimate claim to his empire. Someone he underestimated. You need me." "I need you," he agreed. "But more than that, you need you. Those girls upstairs deserve better than a mother who gave up. And that baby you're carrying deserves a future." Jada placed a hand on her belly. "The test said it's another girl. That test was faked. I hacked the clinic's system. Skylar paid them $50,000 to change the results." The words didn't register at first. Then, slowly, understanding dawned. "It's a boy. It's a boy. Sterling's only son. The heir he's desperate for." Silas's eyes gleamed. "And he threw him away because he trusted a woman who's been lying to him since day one." Jada started laughing. She couldn't help it. The sound was slightly hysterical, but it felt good. For the first time in hours, she felt something other than despair. He kicked out his own son. He did. And he'll never know until it's too late. That's the plan. Jada sobered. "What's the plan exactly?" Silas pulled out a laptop. "First, we keep you and the kids hidden and safe. Sterling can't claim the boy if he doesn't know where you are. Second, I teach you everything I know about digital security, financial systems, and building a business from nothing. Third, we use your mother's recipes to create something Sterling could never touch, a wellness empire built on authenticity, not stolen money. That'll take years, 5 maybe. But at the end of it, you'll walk back into Sterling's world not as his victim, but as his equal, his superior. Silas's voice was steel. And then you'll watch him crumble. Jada looked at her sleeping daughters, then at the papers documenting her husband's betrayal. 5 years ago, she would have chosen forgiveness, compassion, the high road, but that woman died tonight on Sterling's doorstep. The woman sitting here now wanted blood. "Teach me," she said. Silas smiled. "Let's get started." 3 days after arriving at the basement, Jada went into labor. The contractions started at dawn, ripping through her body with an intensity that stole her breath. Tiana woke first, her eyes going wide with fear. "Get Silas," Jada gasped. No. Silas appeared within seconds, his face grim. "Hospital." "No hospitals. Sterling will have alerts on my name. They'll report me." Another contraction tore through her. "Here. It has to be here. Jada, I'm not a doctor. My mother delivered 20 babies in our neighborhood. I watched her." Jada gritted her teeth. "I can talk you through it." It was the longest 6 hours of her life. Tiana held her hand, while Maya boiled water and Lyric, too young to understand, played quietly in the corner. Silas followed Jada's instructions with steady hands, never flinching even when she screamed. And then, finally, a baby's cry pierced the basement. "It's a boy," Silas said, his voice thick with emotion. Jada reached for her son with trembling arms. He was perfect, dark curly hair, Sterling's sharp nose, her full lips, a prince born in poverty. "Prince," she whispered. "Your name is Prince." Her daughters crowded around, cooing over their new brother. For a moment, the basement felt less like a prison and more like a sanctuary. But the moment passed. Reality crashed back as Jada's body reminded her she'd just given birth on a mattress in a concrete room. "You need proper rest," Silas said, gently taking Prince so Jada could lie back. "I'll watch the kids." "You don't have to do this," Jada said quietly. "Any of this? We're not your responsibility?" "Maybe not. But someone needs to stand against men, like Sterling. Might as well be me." He settled into a chair with Prince cradled expertly against his chest. "Besides, I lost my own daughter years ago. Cancer. She was 7. So being around your girls, it helps." Jada's heart ached. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Just get strong." For over the following weeks, Jada healed. Her body recovered faster than her heart, but she forced herself to focus on survival rather than grief. Silas kept his promise. Every day, he taught her something new. He showed her how to code, how to build websites, how to encrypt data so Sterling could never trace her. He taught her about shell corporations, offshore accounts, and the loopholes wealthy people used to hide their money. "Sterling thinks technology is beneath him," Silas explained. "He hires people to handle his digital presence. That's his weakness. He doesn't understand the power of the internet. And I will. You already do. You just don't know it yet." Jada absorbed everything like a sponge. Late at night, after her children were asleep, she'd sit at Silas's laptop, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she built the foundation of what would become her empire. She started with her mother's journal, hundreds of recipes for natural remedies. Teas for anxiety, balms for pain, tinctures for sleep. Her mother had been a healer, dismissed by modern medicine, but trusted by those who knew her power. Jada would honor that legacy. She created a website, J. Regal Wellness. Simple, clean, professional. Then she made social media accounts, posting daily tips about natural healing, mental health, and Black maternal wellness. She used free stock photos at first, unable to risk showing her own face. But her words resonated. Within 3 months, she had 10,000 followers. Within 6 months, 50,000. People were hungry for authenticity, for someone who understood their struggles. Jada's posts about surviving betrayal, finding strength in darkness, and rebuilding from nothing struck a chord. She never mentioned Sterling by name, never revealed her identity, but people sensed the truth in her words. They began asking where they could buy her mother's remedies. Silas helped her find a small manufacturer willing to work with her minimal budget. They started with 3 products: a sleep tea, a stress relief balm, and an energy tincture. Jada hand packaged every order in the basement, while Prince napped and her daughters did homework around her. The first month, she sold 12 units. The second month, 200. By the 6th month, she was selling 3,000 units monthly. The money wasn't much, barely enough to cover expenses. But it was hers. Built by her hands, her mind, her mother's wisdom. "You're doing it," Skylar said one night, reviewing her financials. "You're actually building something real." Jada looked around the basement, still cramped, still dim, but now filled with inventory boxes and packing materials. Her daughters had adapted. Tiana helped with shipping labels. Maya designed thank you cards. Even Lyric could count products into boxes. They'd become a team. "It's not enough yet," Jada said. "Sterling's worth hundreds of millions. I need to be bigger. You will be. But first, you need to protect what you're building." Silas pulled out paperwork. "I've set up a series of LLCs that trace back to a trust. Sterling won't be able to connect them to you. Your business is legally untouchable." "How do you know all this?" 20 years working for rich people teaches you how they hide their dirt." His smile was bitter. "I learned from the best crooks in Atlanta." As Prince grew, Jada marveled at how much he looked like Sterling. The same piercing eyes, the same stubborn chin. But where Sterling's features were cold, Prince's were warm. He laughed easily, cried when his sisters cried, shared his toys without being asked. He was everything Sterling could never be. Kind. "He'll never know his father," Tiana said one afternoon, watching Prince toddle across the basement floor. "That's probably for the best," Jada replied. "Don't you think he deserves to know where he came from?" Jada considered this. Someday, when he's old enough to understand that DNA doesn't define family, that real fathers show up. And Sterling never did. Tiana nodded slowly. "Do you think Daddy ever thinks about us?" The question cut deep. Jada wanted to lie, to protect her daughter's heart. But Tiana deserved honesty. "I don't know, baby. But what I do know is that we're better off without him. We're stronger now, braver. And we're building something he could never destroy. Because we have each other. Because we have each other." 2 years passed. Then 3, Jada's business exploded. Her social media following hit 2 million. Celebrities started endorsing her products. Magazine features followed. Podcast interviews. She did them all without showing her face, using voice modulation software and carefully scripted answers. The mystery only made people more interested. Who is the woman behind J. Regal? Articles speculated. Why does she hide? If they only knew. By year 4, Jada had moved her family out of the basement and into a modest house in College Park. Nothing flashy. She couldn't risk Sterling noticing. But it had bedrooms for each child and a backyard where Prince could play. Silas had his own place nearby, but he visited daily, helping manage the business that had grown beyond anything Jada had imagined. "You need to go public," he said during one of their strategy sessions. "Show your face. Tell your story. People will lose their minds when they realize who you are." Not yet. Sterling still has too much power. If he finds out about Prince. Jada's voice trailed off. "He'll try to take him." "I know." Silas leaned back in his chair. "But he won't succeed. You have resources now, lawyers, security, a platform. You're not the woman he threw away anymore." Jada agreed. "I'm not." Year 5 arrived faster than expected. Jada's company was now worth $12 million. She'd paid Silas back for everything he'd invested, with interest. Her daughters attended private school. Prince was thriving in pre-K, already reading above his grade level. She'd done it. Risen from nothing. Built an empire from pain. But the anger hadn't faded. It had crystallized into something sharper, more focused. Revenge. "There's a business gala next month," Silas mentioned casually. "The Atlanta Elite Summit. Every major CEO in the state will be there, including Sterling." Jada's pulse quickened. "You think I'm ready?" "I think he's not ready for you." She looked at herself in the mirror that night. 5 years had changed her. She was leaner, harder, her eyes sharper. Success looked good on her. But more than that, she looked free. "It's time," she whispered to her reflection. Time to remind Sterling of exactly what he'd thrown away. Time to introduce him to his son. Time to watch his world burn. Sterling's life had become a waking nightmare. He stood in his home office, the same office where he'd signed Jada's divorce papers 5 years ago, staring at his computer screen with mounting horror. Red numbers glared back at him. His personal accounts depleted. His business reserves hemorrhaging. His investments tanking. How had it come to this? "Baby," Skylar's voice shrilled from downstairs. "The black card got declined again? Fix it!" Sterling's jaw clenched. Skylar. His beautiful, poisonous mistake. When he'd married her 2 months after divorcing Jada, he'd thought he was upgrading. Skylar was young, stunning, and worshipped him. She'd promised him sons, an army of heirs to carry his name into the future. But 3 years later, she remained stubbornly unpregnant. And worse, she spent money like it was infinite. Designer purses, luxury cars, first-class trips to Dubai, Paris, Monaco. She'd burned through $7 million in the first year alone. "It's an investment," she'd said when he'd confronted her. "People need to see us as successful. Appearances matter." Sterling. But appearances didn't pay bills. His company, Reynolds International, was collapsing. The expansion he'd funded with Jada's stolen inheritance had failed spectacularly. The New York office never turned a profit. The Atlanta headquarters was underwater. His investors were circling like sharks, demanding answers he didn't have. And through it all, Skylar spent and spent and spent. "Sterling?" She appeared in his office doorway wearing a dress that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Did you hear me? The card isn't working because there's nothing left to spend, he said flatly. Her perfectly microbladed eyebrows drew together. What do you mean? I mean we're broke, Skylar. Finished. Done. The color drained from her face. That's not funny. Do I look like I'm joking? He gestured at his computer. We have maybe 3 months before the bank forecloses on this house. My business is bankrupt, and your spending sprees have ensured we have zero liquidity. Skylar's shock lasted exactly 5 seconds before transforming into rage. This is your fault? You're supposed to be some genius businessman, but you can't even keep us afloat. I could if my wife wasn't spending $100,000 a month on shoes. I'm maintaining our image. What image? We're frauds, Skylar. Everyone knows it. The investors know we're underwater. The board wants me out. Hell, even our friends have stopped returning my calls because they know I'm finished. Skylar's face twisted into something ugly. You promised me a life of luxury. You said you were worth $500 million. I was. Before I married you. She slapped him. Hard. The crack echoed through the office. Sterling touched his cheek, shocked. Did you just? You're pathetic. Skylar's voice dripped venom. No wonder Jada couldn't stand you. You're weak. A failure. Something in Sterling snapped. Don't you dare mention her name. Why not? At least Jada had dignity. I'm stuck with a broke loser who can't even get me pregnant. That's not my fault. Sterling roared. You're the one who's barren. Skylar's smile turned cruel. Oh, sweetie. There's something I should probably tell you. The way she said it made Sterling's blood run cold. What? Remember that minor surgery you had 3 years ago? The one to remove that benign growth? He did. A simple procedure. He'd been back on his feet in 2 days. Skylar examined her nails. I may have paid the surgeon a little extra to perform a vasectomy while he was in there. Just a tiny snip. You'd never know. The room spun. You did what? I made sure you couldn't have children with anyone else. This way, when you inevitably died, I'd inherit everything without having to share it with some brat. She shrugged. Made financial sense at the time. Sterling couldn't breathe, couldn't think. You destroyed my ability to have children. Technically, the surgeon did. I just paid for it. She yawned. Though I guess it doesn't matter now, since you're broke anyway. He lunged at her, his hands reaching for her throat. But she danced backward with a laugh. Careful, Sterling. Assault charges would ruin what's left of your reputation. He stood there, shaking, realizing for the first time the magnitude of what he'd done. He'd divorced Jada, loyal, loving Jada, for this monster. He'd thrown away his daughters for a woman who'd destroyed his future. And worst of all, he'd spent 5 years desperately trying for a son that would never come. Get out, he whispered. Excuse me. Get out of my house. We're done. Skylar laughed harder. Your house, baby. Check the deed. I made sure my name went on it during our prenup renegotiation last year. 50-50 ownership. If anyone's leaving, it's you. Sterling's computer dinged with an email notification. He glanced at the screen and felt his heart stop. Furry asura nutty finally argyang. Skylar peered over his shoulder. Oh, well, I guess neither of us will have the house soon. Shame. She sauntered out, her heels clicking down the hallway. Sterling collapsed into his chair, his head in his hands. How had it come to this? 5 years ago, He'd been on top of the world, powerful, respected. Now he was broke, impotent, and married to a woman who'd literally neutered him. His phone buzzed. His assistant, Mr. Reynolds, the board has called an emergency meeting. They're voting on your removal as CEO. Of course they were. When? Tomorrow morning. 9 a.m. Sterling hung up without responding. There was no point. He knew how the vote would go. He'd lost their confidence months ago. His empire was crumbling, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. That night, he couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Jada. Where was she now? Had she remarried? Were his daughters okay? Did they hate him? He pushed the thoughts away. No point in dwelling on the past. What was done. But as dawn broke over Atlanta, Sterling couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. Some reckoning he hadn't prepared for. The business gala was next week. His assistant had insisted he attend despite their financial collapse. "It's important for optics," she'd said. "Show them you're not defeated." But he was defeated. Thoroughly. Completely. Still, he'd go. Put on his best suit. Smile for the cameras. Pretend everything was fine while his life burned around him. What else could he do? What Sterling didn't know, what he couldn't possibly know, was that the gala would change everything. Because across town, in a beautiful home in College Park, Jada was preparing for the same event, and she was bringing someone Sterling never expected to see. His son. The Atlanta Elite Summit was held at the Ritz-Carlton downtown, a glittering affair where Georgia's wealthiest gathered to network, show off, and make deals that would shape the state's economy. Sterling arrived alone. Skylar had refused to come, claiming she was too stressed by their financial situation. Translation: she was embarrassed to be seen with him now that everyone knew he was broke. Fine. He didn't need her. He adjusted his bow tie, one of the few expensive items he hadn't sold yet, and walked into the ballroom with his chin up, pretending confidence he didn't feel. The whispers started immediately. "That's Reynolds. Heard his company's going under. Poor bastard. Wife drained him dry. He's got some nerve showing his face." Sterling grabbed champagne from a passing waiter and downed it in one gulp. Liquid courage. He'd need it to survive this night. The gala's host took the stage, a silver-haired woman dripping in diamonds. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight. We have a very special guest, someone who's taken the wellness industry by storm and built a multi-million-dollar empire in just 5 years. Please welcome the founder and CEO of Jada Wellness." Applause filled the room. Sterling clapped politely, curious despite himself. He'd heard of Regal. Their products were everywhere lately. Some mysterious woman who never showed her face. Probably a marketing gimmick. The ballroom doors opened, and Jada walked in. Sterling's champagne glass slipped from his fingers, shattering on the marble floor. It couldn't be. It wasn't possible. But there she was, more beautiful than he remembered, wearing a stunning black gown that hugged every curve. Her natural hair was styled in elegant locks cascading down her back. Diamond earrings caught the light. She looked like royalty. Behind her walked 3 young girls Sterling barely recognized. Tiana, no longer a child but a poised teenager. Maya, graceful and confident. And Lyric, the toddler he'd thrown out in the cold, now a stunning 8-year-old. But it was the boy holding Jada's hand that made Sterling's world stop. 5 years old. Dark curls. Sterling's nose, Sterling's chin, Sterling's eyes staring back at him with curiosity. No, 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 no. The pregnancy. The test had said it was a girl. Skylar had shown him the results. It was another useless daughter. But looking at that boy, Sterling saw himself. Undeniable. Unmistakable. A son. He'd thrown away his son. The room spun. Sterling gripped the nearest table for support, his vision tunneling. Jada reached the stage, graceful and composed. When she spoke, her voice carried across the ballroom with authority. Thank you for that warm welcome. 5 years ago, I was homeless, pregnant, abandoned by someone who promised to love me forever. I had 3 daughters to feed and nowhere to turn. The crowd was silent, captivated, but I had something more valuable than money. I had my mother's wisdom, her recipes, her healing touch, and I had determination. Jada's eyes swept the room, landing on Sterling for just a moment. I built Regal from nothing. Every product formulated in a basement. Every package shipped by hand. Every customer earned through authenticity, not stolen wealth. That last line, stolen wealth. She was talking about him. I'm here tonight not just to celebrate my success, but to announce Regal's expansion into mental health services for Black mothers. We're opening wellness centers in 5 cities, starting with Atlanta, because no woman should ever feel alone the way I did. The applause was thunderous. Jada smiled, then added softly, and to the person who threw me away, thank you. You set me free. She left the stage, immediately surrounded by admirers, CEOs, investors, people who wanted a piece of her success. Sterling pushed through the crowd like a man possessed. He had to reach her, had to explain. Had to. Jada! She turned slowly, her expression cool. Sterling, what a surprise. We need to talk. Now. I don't think we have anything to discuss. That boy. Sterling's voice cracked. He's mine, isn't he? Jada tilted her head. Why would you think that? Don't play games. He looks exactly like me. The test. You said it was a girl? The test lied. Jada's smile was sharp. Funny how that happens when someone pays the clinic to falsify results. Sterling's blood turned to ice. Skylar, Jada confirmed. She needed you to think I was only capable of girls. Had to make sure you'd throw me away before you discovered the truth. I didn't know. Jada, you have to believe me. I didn't know. Would it have mattered? Her voice was soft but cutting. You threw away 3 beautiful daughters because they weren't sons. You called them worthless. You kicked a pregnant woman into a freezing storm. Whether that baby was a boy or girl doesn't change what you are. I was wrong. I know I was wrong. Sterling's voice broke. But he's my son. I have a right. You have no rights. Jada's voice turned to steel. You forfeited them when you locked the door in our faces. When you let my 3-year-old daughter cry for her shoes and did nothing. When you stole my inheritance to fund your failing business. The crowd around them had gone silent. Listening to every word, Sterling felt hundreds of eyes on him. You can't keep him from me. I'll take you to court. I'll fight for custody. With what money? Jada asked sweetly. I hear you're bankrupt. That your company's collapsing. That you can't even afford your mortgage. How did she know that? While you were living your champagne dreams with the woman who destroyed your fertility. I was building an empire. I have lawyers, Sterling, good ones. I have documentation of everything you did. Every penny you stole, every lie you told. I'll tell the judge you kept him from me, that you hid my son. Go ahead, tell them. Then I'll produce the divorce papers where you stated you wanted nothing to do with any children from our marriage. I'll show them security footage of you throwing us out. I'll bring in witnesses who saw you abuse us. Jada stepped closer. And then I'll introduce them to Silas Montgomery. Remember him, the man you framed. He has quite the story to tell about your illegal business practices. Sterling stumbled backward. This is revenge. You're using my son to punish me. His name is Prince, and he's not a weapon. He's a child who deserves better than a father who sees children as property. Jada's voice softened slightly. If you want to be in his life, you'll have to earn that privilege. Through therapy, through accountability, through actual change. I can change, Sterling said desperately. I will change. Please, Jada. He's all I have left. No, Sterling. He's not yours at all. He's mine. I carried him. I birthed him alone in a basement. I raised him while building a company from nothing. He knows me as his mother. He knows Silas as his grandfather figure. You're just the man who threw us away. Jada, please. Mama. Prince appeared at Jada's side, looking up at Sterling with innocent curiosity. Who's this man? Sterling's heart shattered. His son didn't even know him. Just someone Mama used to know. Jada said gently, stroking Prince's curls. Come on, baby. Let's go talk to the nice people who want to hear about our business. She walked away, taking Prince with her, leaving Sterling alone in the middle of the ballroom. Around him, people whispered and pointed. Some looked at him with pity, others with disgust. Sterling had never felt smaller in his life. He'd lost everything, his money, his company, his family. And now, watching Jada shine like the queen she'd always been, he realized he'd lost the one person who'd ever truly loved him. For the first time in 5 years, Sterling cried. The lawsuit came 3 days after the gala. Sterling filed for emergency custody of Prince, claiming Jada had unlawfully kept his son from him. He used every connection he had left, calling in favors from lawyers who remembered when he'd been powerful. But Jada was ready. The courtroom was packed. News cameras lined the hallway. The story had exploded across social media. Billionaire discovers secret son. Made headlines everywhere. Except Sterling wasn't a billionaire anymore. And there was nothing secret about what he'd done. Jada's lawyer, a sharp black woman named Melissa Crawford, came armed with evidence Sterling didn't know existed. First, she played security footage from Sterling's mansion the night of the eviction. The court watched in horrified silence as Sterling dragged a pregnant woman and 3 crying children to the door during an ice storm. These babies were cold. I don't want to go outside. My feet hurt. The sound of the door slamming, the lock clicking. Several jurors wiped away tears. Sterling's lawyer objected. Your Honor, my client was within his rights to as ex-wife to leave his property. His property. Melissa pulled out a document. Let's talk about property. This is the deed to Jada Robinson's mother's house in Decatur, valued at $2 million. It was left to Mims Robinson in her mother's will, except Mr. Reynolds forged her signature and transferred it to his name 2 months after the funeral. Sterling shot up. That's a lie! Is it? Melissa displayed bank records on the courtroom screens. Here are the wire transfers from the sale of that property, all going into accounts controlled by Sterling Reynolds. Here's the forged signature. And here. She pulled out another document, is testimony from the notary who was paid to authenticate that forgery. The judge's expression darkened. Mr. Reynolds, did you embezzle your wife's inheritance? It wasn't embezzlement. We were married. What was hers was mine. Actually, Melissa said calmly, Ems. Robinson's mother specifically structured her will to protect these assets from marital claims. They were separate property. Mr. Reynolds stole approximately $2 million from my client. Sterling's lawyer was sweating now. Your Honor, we weren't prepared for these allegations. Neither was Mims. Robinson prepared to be thrown into the street while pregnant. The judge looked disgusted. Continue, Miss Crawford. Thank you, Your Honor. I'd now like to call Silas Montgomery to the stand. Silas walked to the witness box. His bearing military, straight. Mr. Montgomery, what was your relationship to the defendant? I was head of security for Sterling Reynolds International for 15 years. And why did that employment end? I discovered evidence of Sterling's embezzlement and confronted him. He fired me and had me arrested on false charges of theft. Sterling's lawyer jumped up. Objection. Mr. Montgomery is a disgruntled former employee with an axe to grind. An axe to grind. Silas's voice was ice. Sterling Reynolds destroyed my reputation, froze my bank accounts, and ensured I couldn't find work in my field for 5 years. You're damn right I have an axe to grind, but that doesn't make my testimony less true. The judge allowed it. Silas proceeded to detail every illegal action Sterling had taken, bribing officials, falsifying financial records, insider trading. He had documentation for all of it. Where did you get these documents? Sterling's lawyer demanded during cross-examination. From Sterling's own servers. He thought firing me meant I'd lose access. He forgot I built those servers. Silas smiled coldly. I know every password, every hidden folder, every dirty secret. The courtroom erupted, but Melissa wasn't done. Your Honor, I'd like to call Skylar Montgomery to the stand. Sterling's head snapped up. Skylar. She'd refused to come to court, claiming illness, but there she was, looking dramatically different. Cheap clothes, no makeup, hair unwashed. She'd fallen far in just a few weeks. Ms. Montgomery, you were married to Sterling Reynolds. Still am, unfortunately. Skylar's voice was bitter. Can you tell the court about the prenatal test, Mr. Reynolds used to justify divorcing Ms. Robinson? Skylar glanced at Sterling, then shrugged. I paid the clinic $50,000 to fake the results. The baby was always going to be a boy. Sterling was just too stupid to realize I'd played him. Gasps filled the courtroom. And can you tell us about Mr. Reynolds' fertility status? He's sterile. I paid his surgeon to perform a vasectomy during a routine procedure 3 years ago. Skylar examined her nails. Figured if I couldn't get pregnant, neither should anyone else. Sterling lunged from his seat. You destroyed my life. You destroyed your own life? Skylar screamed back. You threw away a good woman for me. And I'm the worst decision you ever made. We deserve each other. The bailiff had to restrain both of them. The judge banged his gavel repeatedly. Order! Order in this court! When the chaos settled, Melissa delivered her final blow. Your Honor, the evidence is clear. Sterling Reynolds is a criminal who stole from his wife, through her, and their children into danger, and is now trying to claim a child he never wanted. My client asks that all parental rights be terminated, and that Mr. Reynolds be investigated for his financial crimes. The judge didn't even need to deliberate long. Mr. Reynolds, in my 30 years on the bench, I've never seen such a clear case of parental unfitness. Your petition for custody is denied. Furthermore, I'm ordering you to pay restitution to Ms. Robinson for the stolen inheritance. $2 million plus interest, totaling $7 million. And I'm forwarding this case to the district attorney for criminal prosecution. Sterling's lawyer started to object, but Sterling waved him off. There was no point. He'd lost everything. The news coverage was brutal. Sterling's face was plastered everywhere with headlines like "Disgraced CEO Stole from Wife and Threw Out Secret Son" and "The Fall of Sterling Reynolds." A cautionary tale. His remaining business partners abandoned him. The bank foreclosed on his house. Skylar divorced him within a week, taking what little he had left. Within 2 months, Sterling was arrested for embezzlement, fraud, and tax evasion. He pleaded guilty to avoid a longer sentence, but still got 7 years in federal prison. The night before he was due to report to prison, Sterling sat alone in a cheap motel room, staring at a photo on his phone. Jada had sent it, the only communication she'd had with him since the trial. It was a picture of Prince, Tiana, Maya, and Lyric standing in front of a massive building. The sign read, "Safe Harbor, a shelter for displaced mothers." Founded by Jada Robinson. The location: Sterling's former mansion. Jada had bought it at auction for pennies on the dollar. But instead of living in it, she'd transformed it into exactly what she'd needed 5 years ago. A place where women fleeing dangerous situations could find safety. Sterling read the message below the photo. "You asked if I was using Prince to punish you. I'm not. I'm using everything you took from me to help people you never cared about." That's the difference between us. You see people as assets. I see them as human beings. Prince will grow up knowing this difference. And someday, if he wants to meet you, that will be his choice. But he'll never wonder if his mother loved him. Because I do. Always have. Always will. Sterling wept. Not for himself. For the first time in his life, he cried for what he'd destroyed. For the woman who'd loved him when he didn't deserve it. For the daughters who'd adored him before he taught them to fear him. For the son who would never call him father. He'd wanted a legacy, an heir, an empire. Instead, he'd built a monument to his own cruelty. And Jada. She'd built something real, something that would outlast any fortune. Love, family, purpose. She'd won. Epilogue. 5 years later, Jada stood on the balcony of her home in College Park, watching her children play in the backyard. Prince was 10 now, brilliant and kind, already talking about becoming a doctor. Tiana was in high school, a straight-A student planning to study business. Maya wrote poetry that made people cry. And Lyric danced like joy itself. Silas had become the grandfather they'd never had. He taught Prince chess, took the girls to father-daughter dances, and made sure they knew their worth. Regal Wellness had expanded internationally. Jada's face was now on magazine covers, her story inspiring millions. But she never forgot where she started. Every week, she visited Safe Harbor, talking with the mothers living there, sharing her mother's recipes, offering hope. One afternoon, a letter arrived from the prison. Sterling had written to Prince. Jada read it first, her heart heavy. It was an apology, raw, honest, and years too late. Sterling took full responsibility for his actions. He didn't ask for forgiveness, just understanding. Do you want to read it? Jada asked Prince gently. Her son thought for a long moment. Not yet. Maybe when I'm older, when I can understand what it means. Jada hugged him close. That's okay, baby. It'll be here when you're ready. Mama. Prince looked up at her with those eyes, so much like Sterling's, but filled with warmth Sterling had never possessed. You're happy now, right? Jada looked at her children, at the home they'd built, at the life she'd created from ashes. Yeah, baby. I'm happy. Good. Because you weren't his burden. Jada smiled, tears streaming down her face. What was I? Prince grinned, repeating the words she'd told them 1,000 times. You were your own strength. And in that moment, Jada knew she'd won more than any court battle or business success. She'd won herself back, and that was everything. THEEND.